What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the most explosive route running I have seen so far at the Senior Bowl this year. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback and would like to train with us this offseason, we are going to be traveling out to 12 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to Charlotte, North Carolina. That camp is completely sold out, but then we'll be heading out to Dallas, Texas, the DMV area, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys want some more information on that or local to one of those cities and would like to schedule training with us, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to one of our off-season camps. Let's get started with this video. So we're going to be breaking down routes from Tank DELL. So he's got insane speed, off the charts speed. And sometimes when you have that kind of speed, it is very, very tough at the top of the route when you're making your cuts to change direction quickly and on a dime. But Tank DELL has that. His route running, I would compare it to probably Jerry Jeudy. And I know that's a big comparison, but you're going to see why with these clips that I'm going to show today. So this first example here is just a simple curl route, but one of the hardest things that wide receivers can do is stop on a dime. So what does stop on a dime mean? That means being able to sell vertical, get that DB to fully commit to a fade, think that we are running deep, and then just put the brakes on right on a dime and not drift, not slip on your cut, be able to get in and out of this break. So first things first, like I said, what you have to be able to do is to sell fade. And a guy with a ton of speed automatically is a vertical threat off the line. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee the fact that you're going to be going deep. Obviously, the DB is more on edge. Obviously, speed helps, but you have to do three specific things that are going to get this DB to commit his hips, which will set you up for that violent snap down, which is what we're going to talk about how he's able to do this in a second. So on your route, number one thing to sell fade, you got to run hard. Now, I say that and a lot of people think, well, oh, that's easy for Tank DELL because, you know, he's insanely fast. He's probably a 4.3 40 guy. It's easy for him to run hard. I'm not saying that you got to run fast. I'm not even saying that you need to be faster than the DB. You just need to be running as hard as you can, but under control, a controlled full speed. Now, the second thing that's going to get this DB to commit to the fade is being able to maintain your stride. I can't tell you how many times wide receivers will get all the way up to this break and they start to shorten up their stride because they are preparing for this hip drop. The break that Tank DELL is making right here is extremely difficult, being able to snap down in stride while you're running full speed. But that's why wide receivers work on this kind of thing. So many wide receivers are plagued by the different million cone drills that there are out there, where you'll get coaches who will set up like 6 different cones, but they're only maybe 2 yards apart. And wide receivers will just run up and do quick feet around the cone. They won't drop their hips, and they'll just zigzag through the cones, not working on anything that is going to translate to an actual route. And that's where so many wide receivers get bad habits and they aren't able to maintain their stride. A DB is no longer going to think fade if DELL starts to shorten his stride here. So two things. Number one, we have to make sure we're running hard. Number two, my stride has to stay the same. And number three, I have to keep a good body language leading into this break, or AKA pad level. So what I mean by pad level, a lot of people don't know what that means. That means literally the level of your shoulder pads. Are you going to get all the way to this break and then raise your chest up to snap down? Or are you going to take the same exact pad level from the start all the way to the break point and trust your hips? That's obviously what we want to do. Now, the reason why pad level plays a role, because you might be thinking, well, why does a DB even care about your pad level? Because he is supposed to be watching what in man coverage? He's supposed to be watching our hips. So if I start to raise my chest up before I drop my hips and snap down, that is something we call an indicator. 3 indicators you can give a DB: a change in speed, a change in stride, and a change in pad level. And that's the first thing that I personally look for in a wide receiver to tell if they're a good route runner or not. Can they sell vertical? And you see it when you look at these different clips you see from the Senior Bowl with other wide receivers. A lot of guys need to slow down. A lot of guys aren't comfortable breaking on a dime. And that's, again, an indicator to this DB. So now, how is he able to make this break on a dime? How is he able to drop like this and decelerate on a dime, make a sharp cut, not drift up field? Because a lot of wide receivers, what they will do is they'll run super hard, but they'll take a million steps at the break point. They'll drift up maybe 3 to 4 yards, and they don't make a sharp cut on a dime. So how DELL is able to do that is by 3 things. Number one, he's violent with his hips. So at that break point, you don't see him beat the drum, do you? His hands actually kind of go dead. I personally don't teach that. I know some wide receiver coaches do teach that to get you to stop quicker. I'm not going to speak too much on that because I feel that's kind of teach his own. Like it's more so based on preference, I would say. But the main thing is when he drops his hips, he's violent. I think we all can agree dropping your hips is important, but it's not a slow drop of my hips. Because when you have that slow drop of your hips, number one, that's an indicator to the DB that you're making a break, and it's a slow indicator. It's an indicator when you drop quickly, but that is a fast indicator where he doesn't have time to react. That violent drop gets you to that position where you could decelerate quickly. And that's the name of the game when it comes to your routes. Now, the second thing that he does is he does not lean back. So many wide receivers, when they have a ton of speed, their chest will be straight up in the air, their chin will be straight up in the air, and their weight is shifted backwards. So they land on their heels, they're falling back, and that makes them completely off balance. You see when Dell drops into this break, what does his chest do? His chest goes forward. He's bringing his chin to his knee, essentially. That puts you in a balanced position. So if you guys can think of it like you're being violent with your hips, you are almost sitting into a chair with your hips, and your chin is going to your knee, that's going to be a position where you can decelerate on a dime. Too many wide receivers make that mistake of going forward with their chest, but not actually sitting in the chair with their hips. They'll bend at their waist and their chest will go past their knee, their chin will go past their knee, and they'll drift forward, especially when they have this kind of speed into the break. So honestly, fellas, what I just broke down right there is the name of the game when it comes to your routes. That's the name of the game when you're running a 5-yard hitch. That's the name of the game when you're running a stop route, a curl route, a 15-yard comeback route. Any break that requires you to drop your hips, those are the things that we have to focus on to be a great route runner. Now, if you think, well, Dell is just an insane athlete. He can make this break because, oh, he's got great athleticism. You know, he's built different, kind of like how Jerry Jeudy does some stuff that you can't really explain. How am I supposed to get like that? Maybe I'm not the best athlete in the world. Some things that you can work on to be able to absorb force, to be able to make these cuts: hip flexibility, number one, and ankle stability and leg strength, number two. There are so many guys out there that lack hip mobility. They don't stretch. They're stiff as a board. So they physically can't drop low like this. They physically can't snap down and change levels at the break because they're super stiff at your hips. So you got to make sure that you are stretching. If you guys would like a stretch routine that wide receivers can do, post in the comments. I could send you over a stretch routine that you guys can use completely free. It's from our website, but it's completely free. And then another thing that you need to work on is a lot of one-legged exercises to absorb force. You know, doing split squats, doing one-legged RDLs, box jumps that are on one leg, to be able to absorb force when you drop your hips, strengthening your legs, getting in a squat rack. All of those things you cannot neglect as a wide receiver because you will not be able to make this cut. I truly believe that this is a skill that can be learned, a skill that can be taught, because you see so many different wide receivers with different body types doing this. But again, everybody loves to make that excuse because nobody wants to actually put in the work to develop those things. So let's play this full speed, and then we will get to another route from Dell that showcases another explosive movement from him, but it's going to be more like a speed cut. So he's going to be running a dig route here, and this is a very, very tough break, being able to cut off of 1 foot, make a sharp 90-degree cut over the middle. So let's break it down. So he's got press coverage, looks like it's inside shade, definitely catch technique where the DB's got maybe a yard or two. Something that I feel Dell doesn't get enough credit for, and you see it with his game film, is his ability to kind of read a defender and have a high football IQ. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to attack DB's leverages. He knows what's going to work against certain looks. So he starts to close the distance with this DB, and this DB starts to shade to the outside. Giving him what? Gives him the inside release. So it's take what the DB gives me. Now, when I take the inside release on a dig route, it's very important that I don't just run away from the DB and break this thing off and round it off. Because in a real game scenario, that's not going to fly. You have other wide receivers there, and not to mention when like other wide receivers running other routes, and not to mention when a DB's outside shade, he usually has help to the inside. So this is one-on-ones. There is no help. There's no other wide receivers on the field. However, you know what is at the Senior Bowl? Scouts. Just like how there are scouts, college coaches at any type of college camp that you might go to. So when you go to those college-type camps, they want to see you run realistic routes. They don't want to see you come off the line and just round it way over the middle and break. They want to see you run a game-realistic route. So what I mean by that is you need to get skinny after your release. You want to try to go hip to hip with him to make him think that it's a fade. Same thing that we were talking about in the last example. You want to make him think that it's a fade. So you see how he squares up his hips and squares up his shoulders to the end zone. That is going to sell fade. So many times what guys will do when they make this kind of speed cut where they cut off of 1 foot, their hips and their shoulders will start to turn before the foot gets down. And DELL doesn't do that. He stays committed, and at the last second, he shoots that foot in the grass, and he has his hips and his shoulders committed in the direction of the cut. All that's going to do is hold this DB there. Maybe it doesn't break his ankles, but that also gives me balance and explosion off the cut. So many times wide receivers, like let's say it's like a 10-yard out, for example, and they go to make that cut, that plant off of their inside foot, and instead of their hip and their shoulders facing in the direction of your foot, their hips and their shoulders are trying to get out of the break too fast. And when your body is over here and your cut is over here, that's going to cause you to slip. That's going to cause pressure on your knee, pressure on your ankle, and it could lead to injury. So DELL, again, he's a very explosive guy. He's very fast, but the mechanics at the top of the break is what will help us control that speed if you're a wide receiver. So just food for thought. Make sure, fellas, anytime that we make that speed cut, we do not round it, because the DB's eyes are going to be looking at my hips, and that gives it away, number one. Number two, when I round it, that cut could get real sketchy, where it's outside my frame. I don't have much push off of the cut. I don't have much acceleration off the cut, and I could hurt myself that way. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. So great job attacking his leverage to the outside, reading in that catch technique that he's shading to the outside, and then now let's talk about this next route from DELL. So this is going to be kind of like a curl route here versus off coverage. Now, I'm not too worried about the situation of the route. I want to pay attention to the details that he showcases at the top of the break here. So whenever you guys snap down on a break, like we talked about in the first example, that curl route, that like you're running a comeback route, a hitch route, you need to focus on obviously getting low. You want a violent drop of your hips. You want to bring your chin to your knee. You want to get to that low explosive spot. But after that, you need to make sure that you are taking the correct steps. And by that, I mean pivoting and hooking your feet so your hips can get out of the break as fast as possible. Now, I'm going to play this full speed, and you're going to see what I mean by that. So let's play this thing right now. DELL comes out. Great job selling fade, and you see how he's able to get in and out of this thing in the least amount of steps possible. So many people talk about steps at the break point. How, oh, he took too many steps. He's chopping his feet. How do we eliminate extra steps? And that's what I want to talk about right now. So this break, he is going to be snapping on his inside foot. So anytime that you snap down on your inside foot, they call that like a trigger step, right? You could have a trigger step with your inside foot here, or you could have a trigger step with maybe your outside foot if you're running like a dig or if you're running a curl. And there are a couple clips of him doing that as well throughout the Senior Bowl. So when you break on the inside foot here, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to take 2 steps or you're going to take 4 steps. So if you're going to take 2 steps, they call that a drop and then a pop. Right? So what that is you snap on the inside foot, you pop your outside foot around, and then you kind of take like almost like a hop and face the quarterback. That's kind of how you would run like a hitch route, if you will. I would consider this more of a curl route, so you're probably going to need more than 2 steps to accelerate out of the break. Anytime that you guys are running a curl, anytime that you guys are running a comeback, it's not just about breaking at the top of it and just turning around. It's about breaking and using your steps to get you back to the QB. Now, when he snaps down on the inside foot, snap, plant, this step, this next one, his third step of this movement is the most important step because that is what's going to get his hips turned. But again, it's the details of route running that will get you separation at the level that he's trying to play at. I truly believe he's talented enough to be a first-round pick. And going up against DBs, like you figure you're going up against a DB like Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, Sauce Gardner. Those guys, you need to have details at the top of the route. You cannot have any wasted time or wasted steps at the top of the route. So what he does such a great job of is he snaps, takes the second step, then he pivots the third step. Now that pivot step, you almost want to turn your foot on like a 45-degree angle because that is what's going to start to turn your hips. Then the fourth step of this movement is a hook step, and that hook step is your push step. You are pushing off of that hook step to drive you back to the quarterback. Now, that hook step, when you hook it around, a lot of guys are a little bit hesitant on that step, and you see how it gets a little bit outside of DELL's frame. He kind of leans back a tad here. I think it's because he struck the ground on his heel to start the movement. However, when you hook around this step, if you're not low and you don't drop your pad level and you try to do this pivot hook method and you're very tall and your legs are extended, that's a great way to hurt yourself. So you have to make sure if we are going to focus on the steps like this, we need to get low. I need to sit in the chair. I need to bring my chin to my knee to set myself up for this. Now, again, snap, gather step, pivot, hook, drive out of there. That is how we eliminate wasted steps at the break. If you guys can self-fade, if you guys can drop on a dime, and you guys can take care of the details at the top of the break for no wasted steps, you are going to be extremely tough to guard. And that's what Tank Dell is, a very, very tough wide receiver to guard. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Dell pushing vertical, staying in stride, dropping on a dime, and getting those hips flipped out of that route. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, we are coming out to 12 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So if you guys would like some more information on that, how you can attend, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out there. I'll see you guys next time.